to share the strategy I use to effectively manage toxic tenants, along with some stories of my experience with each type. First, we'll start with some basics of tenant management before moving on to some of the more difficult issues, including examples of tenants I have had to deal with over the years. The goal is to avoid problems with your tenants, so you should start the relationship off in a positive way by providing clear communication with your new tenant about what your expectations are before moving in and during their tenancy. I have a welcome video for my tenants clearly articulating my expectations, which include utilities, insurance, move-in procedures, lockouts, lost keys, sublets, pets, repairs, and rent. I feel this sets the tone for our relationship. Most tenants feel the need to tell me there is something wrong with the apartment in the first few days of moving in. I like to take the opportunity to listen, and assuming it is legitimate, I address the issues fairly quickly. For most tenants, this resolves their initial anxiety and sets the tone that I am a responsive landlord who takes care of the property, and they can reach out to me if there is an issue. If the tenant continues to ask for more, I will ask them to please take a few days or so to discover all of the other issues and send me a full list so I can address them all at once. For most, this will satisfy their needs, and the second trip is usually the end of it. Most of the issues I'm talking about are little things like a tear in a window screen, a broken blind, a scratch on a wall, a closet door not on the track, missing wand for the blinds, or a burned out light bulb, maybe a smudge on the wall, or something like that. So now we come to the toxic tenants. Each of these situations may need to be handled slightly differently, and the stories I will be sharing really are the exceptions. Let's start with Type 1, the know-it-all. These tenants are surprisingly knowledgeable about everything. They have no problem telling me that I should really replace this appliance, or put in new flooring, or replace a faucet, or something like that, and they seem to think they're doing me a favor by pointing it out to me. I have found the best way to address these requests is to ask, what exactly is wrong with the current situation, and how is it different from what you expected when you applied for this apartment? This usually gets a response where the tenant backpedals a little, says they just think it would be much nicer or something similar to that, and I say I really appreciate your input and I will definitely think about it, but I do not have the budget to replace it this year. You will need to give them the same response to several of their suggestions before they get the message and stop asking. The only caveat to that would be if you really do think it's a good idea, or something that you've really wanted to do but haven't had a tenant willing to live through the work. In this case, I'll take advantage of our needs aligning and their willingness to live through the disruption to do this work. This was actually the case for a bathroom I had really wanted to renovate, but I couldn't stomach just missing out on a full month's rent for the unit, as it was a very high rent apartment. However, the tenant said they'd be going on vacation for 2 weeks and I was welcome to renovate it while they were away. It worked out great for both of us, but that's definitely the exception. Type 2, the Stage 5 clinger. These tenants are nearly impossible to spot, but they can wreak havoc on your property, other tenants, and monopolize your time in taking care of their constant need for attention. They seem normal to start, but can become toxic very quickly. Your best case is to manage them by being all business and cutting conversations short as soon as it strays from the apartment. The worst case in these situations leads to finding a way to get them to leave, which will probably be not renewing their lease or encouraging them to leave, or the absolute last resort, paying them to leave. In my experience, they seem to pay the rent on time and otherwise act as a normal tenant. I had one tenant in particular who would contact me all the time just to tell me what was happening at the property. At first, I was receptive, but it dragged on, and he started to delve into more of his personal life. I tried to listen and be polite, but it only seemed to encourage him. I started having to make excuses to cut the calls short, but I didn't want to simply avoid them in case there was an actual issue. Then, it started to get bad when he started yelling and scaring other people in the building to the point they started complaining about it. It wasn't the first noise complaint I had to deal with, But it only got worse when the police were called after he was yelling about hurting himself a couple times. And my advice, whenever a tenant tells me they're scared for themselves or others, I tell them to call 911 immediately. I recommend you do the same. In this case, I could tell things were not going to get better, and I encouraged him to find another place, as I didn't think this apartment was the best place for him. Now, there wasn't anything wrong with my apartment, but I really didn't want to deal with the constant issue or subject the other tenants to him either. Luckily for me, he heeded my advice and found a new apartment. I let him out of his lease early and we could both move on. This wasn't a situation where I could just ignore it, avoid it, or just manage him. Now, type 3, the serial squatter. These tenants are extremely toxic. They prey on unsuspecting landlords who allow them to move in, knowing the laws will make it difficult and time-consuming and costly for a landlord to evict. I had a tenant early on in my real estate journey, and to be honest, they got one by me. I was using several different rental company agents to show my apartments at the time, as I just didn't have the time to do the showings myself. This particular agent told me everything I wanted to hear about this tenant. She let me know that she had collected the first month's rent. Plus, she had the security deposit. The credit and background check was good. Everything was sounding great. I said, great, please send me over the information and I'll get the lease signed. Unfortunately, I didn't get it right away, and I followed up the next day and the day after that. Now, 3 days later, she replied saying, sorry for the delay. She was getting everything together and getting the check for me. But not to worry. She already gave the tenant the keys to start moving in. I was stunned. I hadn't signed the lease or anything. I was young and inexperienced, and there were clearly major red flags here. I should have reported the agent immediately, but I didn't do that. My apartment was empty, and I had a tenant moving in with the check in hand from the agent. Now, although the credit wasn't great and the background check was incomplete, I thought, okay, how bad can it be? I was horribly wrong, and this tenant was smart too. I learned later this wasn't the first time she'd done this. She knew exactly what she was doing. She always had an excuse and a reason why she didn't have the rent, and her stories seemed plausible. After a month, things seemed to get a little weird, and I realized I had to do something, and I hired an eviction attorney. Of course, I hadn't done this before, so I was learning as I went. I gave her the proper notice, and then things changed. She wasn't nice anymore. She accused me of crazy things, I mean incredibly crazy things, and she sent them all in emails. I, of course, sent them to my attorney, and we continued through the eviction process. Luckily for me, she left after we got the judgment and before the sheriff had to physically evict her. It definitely took an emotional toll on me, dealing with her, not to mention the attorney bills, 3 months of rent I lost while she was there, plus another month while we showed it, and the repair cost to clean up the complete disaster she left the apartment in. Lesson learned. I always run my own credit and background checks. I write the lease, and no one gets the keys till the lease is signed, and I have received the move-in fee and first month's rent. It helps a little that my wife and I do all the showings for our apartments, and we hold the keys, but still, it's a hard lesson to learn, especially when you're just starting out. As a side note, in Chicago, these tenants have gotten smarter and realize that if they leave before the court issues the eviction order, it may not show up on their record. But you can still search the court cases in Cook County, Illinois for their name, even if it doesn't show up in your background eviction check. I've provided the link in the description below, and I assume there are similar ways to search in other major cities as well. Type 4. Everything is your fault. There are times when common sense doesn't seem to be a part of your tenant's knowledge. I have a couple of examples of this, one with a quick fix and the other not so much. I have a property in Chicago with a rear deck that is virtually inaccessible unless you're capable of climbing a small wall, pulling yourself up, then going over a small railing. Normally, this is more than enough to deter most thieves, except when you leave 2 fairly new, very nice bikes unlocked and in plain view overnight. As with anything in a major city, if you leave it unattended and in plain sight, it's likely to get stolen. Of course, that night, both bikes were stolen, and I was accused of not securing the property properly. To add to it, the tenants then told the other tenants in the building that I didn't care about their safety and didn't keep the property secure. Luckily, these tenants were actually moving out next month, but I still had to assure all the other tenants that I do care about their safety and letting them know that I would be changing the lock on the gates, which seemed to appease everyone, but it was just a major hassle and it didn't need to happen at all. There really wasn't much I could have done other than surround the entire property with razor wire, but that's not going to happen. They had their bike stolen, and in their mind, it was clearly my fault. Now, another incident occurred when a refrigerator stopped working. Of course, this wasn't just any refrigerator. It was in one of my very nice apartments renting at around $2,500 a month, and the tenant was extremely upset. He got angry and said I was responsible for all of his food in the refrigerator, plus all of his meals until I could replace the fridge. Besides the obvious absurdity of his request, I was luckily covered, as I have the following clause in my lease. It states, any appliance on the premises provided by the lessor are for the convenience of the lessee, but are not part of the consideration nor rental under this lease, and the lessor does not warrant their fitness nor uninterrupted use or enjoyment, and any interruptions shall not constitute constructive eviction, nor form the basis of a defense, set-off, or counterclaim. Leasee should bear the expense of any repairs to any appliances or to the premises without reimbursement from the lessor. The wording is definitely a little harsh, and I have never had a tenant pay to repair or replace an appliance, but this saved me in this situation. I simply referred him to this clause and said that even though he's actually responsible to repair or replace it, I would get a new refrigerator at no cost to him. After reading that he was actually responsible for it, he agreed to my proposal and dropped all of his other demands. In my experience, the best reaction you can have when a tenant is angry is to simply listen. Let the tenant vent, complain, lash out. Although it is hard, you need to simply listen and repeat back what you have heard, so the tenant can feel heard. This will set the stage to actually resolve the issue. Once the tenant is heard, you can then discuss a possible solution. Until that happens, the tenant will not hear anything you say. I have found that when possible, the best answer is to say that you will need to do some research and get back to them. This does a couple of things. It lets the tenant know they have been heard and you are working on resolving their issue while at the same time allowing the tenant time to calm down. If you come back the next day by restating the issue and proposing a solution, I have found the tenant to be much more receptive to hearing it rather than trying to fix it right away. If it is an emergency like a water leak or similar, then you may just need to show up and address it that day, but that is the exception. I hope this video gives you some insight into dealing with potentially toxic or difficult tenants. In my experience, these instances are rare, and sometimes even a good tenant has a bad day. So remember, if you can listen and work with the tenant, it will normally result in a better end result than trying to fight with your tenant, as that rarely ends well. If you like this video, please consider subscribing. If you have your own toxic tenant story, please share it below and join the discussion. Thank you for watching.